والصلاة والسلام على رسولك الكريم اللهم انفعنا بما علمتنا وعلمنا ما ينفعنا وزدنا علما اللهم نبر قلوبنا بالقرآن العظيم اللهم صل وسلم وبارك على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. Inshallah, we begin today's class with a little bit of a review that we did in the first introductory session, because many new persons have joined, and it will be very quick. We started out using Imam al-Ghazali's Jawahir al-Qur'an, in which he says the Sirr al-Qur'an, the deepest secret of the Qur'an is that it is an invitation of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to all humanity. And he says there are three fundamental themes of the Qur'an, beginning with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala himself. Second is the Tarif of Sirat al-Mustaqim, the definition of the straight path. And the third is the Tarif al-Hal ind al-Wasul. The third is the state of the human being at the time of meeting Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. These are the three fundamental themes of the Quran. And we said that other scholars have used this fundamental theme in other ways, including Ar-Razi, who said that the three most fundamental themes of the Quran are Tawheed, or Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Risala, prophethood, and Ma'ad, the return. These are titles given to but Imam Ghazali and many scholars before him and after him. They have tried to comprehend the overarching aspect of the book of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala through these. And then everything comes under these three fundamental themes, including the three subcategories that Imam Ghazali has in terms of two kinds of human beings who respond to the invitation of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the one who deny and the one who accept, and what are their states at the time of meeting Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And the reason he says that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has these in his book is a twofold. Number one, targheeb, to give, to inspire people when they see this is going to be a state of people who respond to the call of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the beauty, the ease, the blessings that they have. So this is targheeb. This is, I want to join this group, not this group about whom Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given us the graphic picture of what would be their state, who deny the invitation, who don't take the invitation. And all of this requires a sirat, a path. And the inherent assumption here is that human beings cannot know the path to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala on their own. Now, this is a belief that is shared because of aqīda. The belief that we cannot find the path to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala just using what our intellect says is a belief. People can say, no, human beings have enough of intellect, enough of resources, whoever gave them. As Aristotle said and other Greek philosophers said, we don't need a God to tell us what is good life, what is good, what is bad, what is evil, what is not evil. We human beings have enough resources to decide that. There are people who have said that. So we will, inshallah, discuss this point as we go to the aqīda. So this is why we are dealing with, in this thematic study of the Quran, with the overarching, with the higher order scheme that we have in our tradition, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the risala, the function of prophethood, and the ma'ad, what's going to happen at the end of everything in the hereafter. So these three themes. And we have been focusing on the first aspect of the three themes, that is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Now, we said that we went into details of one aspect of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that is the name, Allah. Ism. Ism Jalala, and we went into the details whether it is derived from other words or it is not derived, and what is the significance of the name itself. And I need to add a few more things to that, and then inshallah we'll move to today's class. These things were mentioned briefly, but I felt that we need to have a little bit more detail. The name Ism Jalala, we talked about whether we can translate into other languages. We went into the details of that, and I won't go into those again. But the significance of the word itself in the Quran is the point that I didn't pay much attention. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in Surah Al-An'am, فَكُلُوا مِمَّا ذُكِرَ اسْمُ اللَّهِ عَلَيْهِ إِن كُنتُم بِآيَاتِهِ مُؤْمِنِينَ. If you believe in His ayahs, in His signs, then eat from upon which مِمَّا ذُكِرَ اسْمُ اللَّهِ. These are the animals we slaughter. Eat from those animals upon whom the name of Allah has been mentioned. Which means, and then other ayahs actually say that, do not eat those on which the name has not been mentioned. وَلَا تَأْكُلُوا مِمَّا لَمْ يُذْكَرِ اسْمُ اللَّهِ عَلَيْهِ وَإِنَّهُ لَفِسْقٌ. This is very strong in terms of the slaughtering of the animals. Now, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala uses the name Ism in three ways in the Quran. Ism in the sense of His own name. Number one, mentioning just Himself, Allah Himself. And there are ayahs which was, for instance, Tabarak asmu rabbika zil jalali wal ikram, the last ayah of Surah Al-Rahman, fasabbi bismi rabbikal azim. The command appears three times, fasabbi bismi rabbikal azim. So glorify the name of your Rabb. It doesn't say glorify your Rabb, it says the name of your Rabb. So the significance that I want to bring out from the Quran is the significance of the ism, of the name itself. Sabbi isma rabbikal a'la. Again the ism. Vazakara isma rabbihi fasalla. Now the very first wahi that came to Prophet ﷺ was Ikra bismi rabbikal lazi khalaq. Again the name, in the name of Allah. Now, as I said, three aspects. Number one, just the name itself, the glorification of the name of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That is why we are commanded not, la tasabbu. The Prophet ﷺ told us, ilahum, la tasabbu ilah. Do not call names to their gods, because they would in turn do the same to the name Allah. So the Prophet ﷺ told us not even to their idols, not even to call names to the idols, because in response they would do the name of Allah. So the name is so significant. The majesty of this name, the importance of this name in our lives. The three aspects, number one is the glorification, the name itself. The two other aspects are extremely important, and that is what becomes halal. The physical action of slaughtering a lamb or a cow or any animal, any meat we eat, is the same. Anyone in the slaughterhouse can just take a knife, cut the humane way, and let even the blood drain, but it won't be halal until the name is pronounced. Eating is like that sustenance. That is so important, that we need to pronounce the name of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala on the things, on the animals that we eat. What makes it permissible? Likewise, what makes the relationship between husband and wife permissible? This is the name of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. These are the two fundamental aspects of human life, and both have the name of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala attached to them. So this is what in the Quran that we didn't pay attention to it. Now we come to today's. We know that the belief in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is wājib, it's obligatory. And there is a very fascinating aspect, I touched upon it in the introductory class. There is a very fascinating aspect of the Quran that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala does not give us ayahs in the same emphatic manner about His existence as He does about the shirk, about association. If we reflect on the book of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, we find that the shirk is mentioned so intensely to the extent that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has announced one single category of people He is not going to take to Jannah, like He is going to punish them. Only one category, and it's shirk. He may forgive everyone else, He says, except those who associate with Him. This is the ghaira of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. There is absolutely no compromise. But His proof, although there are some that I'm going to mention today, inshallah, but they are not that emphatic, and there is a reason for it. Like we today, this is a strange age where for the first time in human history, we have the largest number of people openly saying, I don't believe in God. There is no God. It has never happened before the modern times. And it started way back in the 17th century and started to increase exponentially. And why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala didn't pay attention to proving that He exists? It's fascinating. Inshallah, we'll go into it. But before we do that, because we were at the point of saying, okay, we accept that it is wājib, it is obligatory for human beings, for us to believe in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But who is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that we believe in? It's that part that requires more focus. We can have somebody who believes in three gods, for example, and say, do you believe in God? Oh, yes, I believe in God. Do you believe in God? Yes, I believe in God. Let's go have coffee together. We both believe in God. Everything is fine. There is no problem. But when you start, so what do you believe about God? That is where distinction comes. Because the Jahili, the Arabs, they also believed in God. They believed in Allah. They not just God, but Allah. They believed in Allah. How do we know what we believe in Allah? We mentioned a little bit of it last time, and inshallah we are going to use one of the fundamental creedal statements that exist in our tradition to dive deeper into it. And we are only going to do from the ʿaqīda al-Ṭaḥāwiyya, as I mentioned in the email before, the part that deals with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The part that deals with the prophethood is not in today's class. So, importance of knowing what we believe in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is very important, and we inshallah go into it. Just the word aqīda, some people may think that this is not really necessary for every Muslim to know what aqīda is, what we believe about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, which is partly true. 95% of believers previously in our history, they didn't need to go into these details. Who is Allah? Everybody knew He is one. We believe in oneness of Allah. Everybody believed. But the details that we have, like 40 articles of aqīda, they didn't need that. Most people today, even they may not need it, but many educated people need it because they live in a different society. So aqīda as a word itself, as an ism, its plural is aqaid. What is the definition of aqīda? As you know, the definitions of every term, they change according to the field in which they are used. Like if we use a definition in chemistry or physics, atom, for example, is in physics or chemistry is something else, but if we use it metaphorically in a piece of literature, it's something else. So aqīda fi deen, what does aqīda mean in deen? So it means ma yuqsadu bihi al-i'tiqādu dūna al-amal ma aqada alayhi al-qalba wa tma'inna ilayhi. In fiqh, in the legal term, aqīda is what goes into the heart and makes it tranquil. There is no suspicion left, there are no doubts left after it goes into the heart. In deen, it is other than the deeds. It's not connected with actions. The word aqīda is not. So whatever we believe in aqīda is dunal amal. It's other than the actions that come from what we believe. But aqīda itself is not the action itself. And I mentioned a few things about aqīda taḥāwiyya last time, so I won't go into the details of why we have this aqīda and the historical details. The recording of the last class is on the website. So let's go over quickly this text, because our intention is not to study aqīda taḥāwiyya, but our intention is to actually keep our focus on what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has told us about Himself. So the first article, Inna Allāhu wāḥidun lā sharīka lah. He is wāḥid, and wāḥid, we said last time, is not just one, as in numbers 1, 2, 3, 4. No, this wāḥid is unicity of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Unicity, I use this word often. It's better than saying one. Allah is one. This is absolute uniqueness of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Laysa kamithlihi shay. There is nothing like Him. So when we say La Wahidu La Sharika Lahu, we mean Wala Shayya Misluhu. There is no thing like Him. Wala Shayyun Shayya Yujizuhu. There is nothing that can make Him incapacitated. This is our belief. These are the articles of what we believe about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He is wāḥid, there is nothing like Him, and nothing can make Him incapacitated. He can do anything. He has absolute power. Wala ilahu ghayru. There is no God other than Him. Now this number 5 is very important. Qadimun bila ibtada, daimun bila intaha. This is very fundamental aspect of our belief, that He is eternal. He is before anything else. And daimun, like He is going to be there, bila intaha, there is no end to Him. Every kullu shayin halikun illa wajhu. In Surah Ar-Rahman, everything is going to perish except the face of Ar-Rahman. In Surah Ar-Rahman, everything is going to perish. But He has no beginning. Allah, everything is muhdas. Everything came into existence at a time. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala didn't come into existence at any time. There is no beginning, there is no end. Wal-awwalu wal-ākhiru wal-zāhiru wal-bāṭinu. He is the first and the last, manifest and the hidden. La yufna wa la yubīd. He neither perishes nor ceases to exist. Number 7, وَلَا يَكُونُ إِلَّا مَا يُرِيدُ. Nothing can come into existence, nothing can happen, nothing will be except what He wills. Like His will is supreme. لَا تَبْلُغُهُ الْأَوْهَامُ وَلَا تُدْرِكُهُ الْأَفْهَامُ. This is the part we dealt with last time, that لَا تُبْلُغُهُ الْأَوْهَامُ. The imaginations cannot reach Him. No human can conceive who Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is, as His being, as His Zat. وَلَا تُشْبِهُ الْأَنَامِ. Creatures have absolute no similarity. This is very important, because in the Quran we read ayahs which say He created, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created biyadil khair. In His hand is all good. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created Adam alayhi salam with His hands. Human beings have hands. We talked a little bit about it last time. La tushbihu hul anam. These hands have absolutely no similarity of what is being mentioned in the Quran. And then the problem arose in our history. People said, well, this is a very tricky area. Why don't we totally deny any kind of physicality to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? So these ayahs in the Quran which say he's established on his throne, he has hands, he has face, these are metaphorical. Meaning when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that he created with his hands, bi-aidi, it means by his power. It doesn't mean his hand, it means by his power. Hands are metaphor for power because hands have power. So people went to that extreme, and the others said, no, you cannot do that because we don't have any proof to interpret what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying about himself in our way. Because it is our limitation, it is the human limitation, because we cannot conceive of hands of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So we say, no, he doesn't have hands. They say, no, it's going too far. We cannot. That means we are defining Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And we said we are not going to define. He's laysam kamithlihi shay. He's not like anything else. Hayyu la yumut, qayyum la yanam. He is hayy, he is ever living. And the greatest ayah, according to many descriptions of Ayat al-Kursi, has this la ta'khudhuhu sinatun wa la nawm. Sleep doesn't touch him, tiredness doesn't touch him. So this is cardinal belief. Aqīda, hayyu la yamut, qayyum la yanam. He is ever existing, he has he doesn't get tired, he's all sustaining. Khaliqu bila haja, raziqu bila. So this is very important. Khaliqu bila haja. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala creates. In the Quran he mentions he has created Khaliqu kulli shay. He is the creator of everything. Does he have a need to create? Our belief is he doesn't have a need. He has no needs. Then why did he create? We'll go into that. Liyabudu. Why jinn and ins? He created insan, human beings, and jinn, liyabudu, so that they worship him. And what is the meaning of worship? Does he have a need for somebody to worship him? No, he doesn't have it. So again, why would he create two species to worship him when he has no need to be worshipped? So it becomes very involved. Mumayyitum bila maḥāfa. He seizes life without fear. And bā'isun bila mushakka. And he resurrects without effort. This is our creedal belief that life and death are in the hands of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Human beings cannot give life to anything. Human being cannot create anything. Nobody can create anything. This is one of the dalils in the Quran that we inshallah go soon. That one of the fundamental distinctions between Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and everything else that exists is that He is the one who creates. No one else can create. Is that true? Can we create anything? Can any human being create anything? This creation is creation out of nothing. It's not remaking something from an existing material. It is to bring into existence something that has never existed before. Everyone knows that. It's not possible. Number 13. مَا زَالَ بِصِفَاتِهِ قَدِيمًا قَبْلَ خَلْقِهِ. Just as he was possessed of his attributes prior to his creation, so he remains with the same attributes without increasing in them as a result of his creation coming into being. A little bit difficult to understand, but very important to understand. When every other being produces something, it decreases from himself, herself, or from the thing. Like I create, or I make this table, for instance, from wood, this wood is no more the tree it was, used up. It has increased an object in the world and it has decreased another object. When Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala creates, He creates His sifat, His own being, nothing changes in it. He remains before what He was before creation and after creation. وَكَمَا كَانَ بِصِفَاتِهِ أَزْلِيًا كَذَلِكَ لَا يَزَالُ عَلَيْهَا أَبَدِيًا. As He was before creation qualified with specific sifat, specific attributes, so He remains forever described by them. This is important in the sense that there is no change in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's attributes. So He sends the book. That doesn't change His attribute of speech. We believe book is the kalam of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The Qur'an is the speech of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But sending that kalam into the human domain doesn't change His attribute of speech. It remains as it was. It is not after creating the universe that He merits the name the Creator, nor though through originating His creatures that He merits the name the Originator. So we know that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is Khaliq. One of the names is Khaliq. One is the name is Ism al-Bari. He is Bari. These names indicate the sifa, the attributes of creation and bringing into existence. Al-Bari is existentiation. But the names that these sifat attaching to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala are not because He created. He is al-Khaliq whether or not He creates. He is al-Bari whether or not He existentiates. We do not call Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala al-Khaliq al-Bari because He created the universe, He created us. He had these sifas without the need to create. Now, Lahu mani al-rububiyya bala marbub. We say He is our Rabb, our Lord, without a marbub. This is a little bit difficult because Rabb it's a polysemous word, meaning it has many meanings. It's used for lordship, like who is Rabbul Alameen, Maliki Yawmiddin. He is the owner of the day of Deen. But Rabb is also who sustains. So a mother who gives birth to a child is doing the Rububiyya, is doing the nourishment of the child. The child cannot eat bread or anything else at the time. The only sustenance is the milk. And in the animal kingdom, there are millions of examples of Rububiyya in the sense of, like even these chickens when they hatch out of an egg. Have you ever seen a little chick coming out of an egg? How would that creature survive? There is no ability to eat, there is no ability to fly, there is no ability to go anywhere. What does the hen do? Chews the food in her mouth and puts in the mouth of the chick herself. These little things. Teaches how to drink a little bit. Like this everywhere. We'll see this in every place. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the Rabb, but He doesn't need a marboob. He doesn't need someone who needs to be nourished or sustained. He is Rabb by Himself. وَكَمَا أَنَّهُ مُحْيِي الْمَوْتَ بَعْدَ مَا أَحْيَاهُمْ. So just as He is the resurrector of the dead after He resurrects them, He merits the same name before their actual resurrection. Likewise, He merits the name, the Creator, before their actual action. You will see many of these become subsets of the main categories, and we will, inshallah, way down the road, come to the beautiful categorization of these sifat in our tradition into 20 categories. One of them would be the Zati, Ism Zat, Allah Himself. 5 of them are called the Sifatul Salbiya. And then there are 7 and then there are 13, a total of 20. We'll inshallah go into those. That is because he ذَلِكَ بِأَنَّهُ عَلَى كُلِّ شَيْءٍ قَدِيرٌ وَكُلِّ شَيْءٍ إِلَيْهِ فَقِيرٌ. This is so beautiful, this Arabic text. وَكُلَّ أَمْرٍ عَلَيْهِ يَسِيرٌ لَا يَحْتَاجُ إِلَيْهِ شَيْءٍ لَيْسَ كَمِثْلِهِ شَيْءٍ وَهُوَ السَّمِيعُ الْبَصِيرُ. So ذَلِكَ بِأَنَّهُ عَلَى كُلِّ شَيْءٍ قَدِيرٌ. This is because He has power over everything. وَكُلُّ شَيْءٍ عَلَيْهِ فَقِيرٌ. And everything is in need of Him. وَكُلِّ أَمْرٍ عَلَيْهِ يَسِيرٌ. And every matter is easy for Him. لَا يَحْتَاجُ إِلَى شَيْءٍ. And He has no need for everything. يَهْدِي مَن يَشَاءُ وَيَعْصِمُ يُعَاصِي فَضْلًا وَمَن يُضِلُّ مَن يَشَاءُ وَيُخْذِلُ مَن يَبْلَ عَدْلًا. This is, we inshallah go into the details when we discuss these attributes of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and the ayahs which say that He guides and He misguides. This is a little bit difficult to understand. At this point we don't go into the details. All of them vacillate in His providence between His grace and His justice. Baini fadlihi wa adlihi. Again, this is a fundamental creedal belief of Ahlul Sunnah wal Jama'ah. The Mu'tazila didn't believe in this. Their 5 creedal beliefs, which inshallah will be discussed later, they say that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is just, and this then becomes very complicated in terms of human will. We don't want to get sidetracked right now. None can change or thwart His decree, overrule His judgment, or override His command. وَلَا غَالِبَ لِأَمْرِهِ آمَنَّ بِذَلِكَ كُلُّهُ. And we believe in all of these and are certain that all of it is from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So these 30 articles about our beliefs in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Any questions so far? So we started that saying that the belief in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is obligatory. It's wājib, it's absolutely necessary. Then we said, if we believe in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, what do we believe about Him? And we said these are the fundamental 30 articles of beliefs put into this aqīda by one of the greatest scholars of our tradition. This, as I said last time, is not the only aqīda in our tradition. In fact, we said every single scholar of the 3rd century especially, and before and later as well, was either forced to because of the circumstances or did it on his own. A statement of belief, a statement of aqīda. It's the beauty of the categorization and the synthesis that made aqīda taḥāwiyya one of the most fundamental creedal statements in our tradition, and it's not the only one. So there are others, we inshallah don't need to go into the details. The question then is, why do we have to do all of this? What does, if it is obligatory to believe in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, what does it mean that this is absolutely necessary for every believer to know what he or she believes, whether conscious or not? As I said, 95% of the pre-modern people who were not literate, because the literacy rate was so low before the modern age, they didn't even have the need. They just, it was the osmosis. You know, if something is in the air, just breathe it. When you're born, it's in the village, in the city, everyone has this. You just come to know this is how you stand and do your ruku. This is how you do sajda, this is how you slaughter, this is how you eat. All of these things were in the air and people just received it. And the beliefs were also in the air. They just received it. Nobody needed to sit down and say, okay, let's discuss it. But there were times, especially, we said last time during the early Abbasid period, there were times when there was a need. And I believe there is a time right now for us, because the way we are right now in the world, to believe. Now, one of the fundamental texts that we have about the need for this is what is called Hadith Jibraʿīl. And Ummul Kitab is Surah Fatiha. Ummul Kitab, the mother of books. The title Ummul Kitab was given to Surah Fatiha because the mother is the one who has everything in her. Every child comes out of the mother. Ummul Sunnah. This is the Hadith Jibraʿīl, some scholars, mashallah, look at that. Ummul Sunnah, this is the mother of Sunnah. Everything comes out of Hadith Jibraʿīl. And Jibraʿīl is an eyewitness account of Jibraʿīl alayhi salam coming to Medina. Can you imagine that? Like an angel, Jibraʿīl, not just angel. Jibraʿīl alayhi salam comes to Medina in the form of a human being. And this is a hadith that is mass reported. It's in every compilation. But because Prophet ﷺ was sitting with his companions, and a man comes and he comes so close to him that his knees are touching. He comes and sits next to the Prophet ﷺ, and his knees are touching, and people are so surprised because what kind of adab this person has. We have never seen this. He's wearing these white clothes. There is no sign of travel. Where did he come from? And how can he take such liberty to just go and say, Ya Muhammad, akhbarni anil Islam. Oh Muhammad, tell me about Islam. And the Prophet ﷺ doesn't say, who are you? Why are you asking? He says, Al-Islamu an tashhada an la ilaha illallah wa anna Muhammadar Rasulullah. He said, Islam is that you bear witness that there is only one Allah, la ilaha illallah, Muhammad is his Rasul, wa taqim as-salah, wa tu'ti az-zakah, wa tusuma Ramadan, wa tuhajj al-bayta in istata'ta ilayhi sabila, and pray the salah, give the zakah, fast the Ramadan, and go for Hajj if you have the ability to. And he says, Sadaqta, you have spoken the truth. And this version that I am reporting is from Sayyidina Umar, and he says, we were surprised. فَعَجَبْنَا لَهُ يَسَّلُوهُ وَيُصَدَّقُوهُ. What's happening here? This person asks a question and then says, yes, you have spoken the truth. That means he already knows the answer. And then he says, فَأَخْبَرْنِي عَنِ الْإِيمَانِ. And this is the part that we are dealing with. قَالَ أَن تُؤْمِنَ بِاللَّهِ وَمَلَائِكَتِهِ وَكُتُبِهِ وَرُسُلِهِ وَالْيَوْمِ الْآخِرِ وَتُؤْمِنَ بِالْقَدَرِ خَيْرِهِ وَشَرِّهِ. He asks, what is Iman? And the Prophet ﷺ says that you believe in Allah, in the angels, in the books, in the messengers, in the Yawm al-Akhir, the hereafter, and you believe in Qadar, khayrihi wa sharrihi. It's good and it's shar, both of them. And this is going to be, inshallah, maybe several sessions on this. The divine decree, whether it is khayr or shar. And at that point, this person says, Sadaqta, you have spoken the truth. But tell me, فَأَخْبَرْنِي عَنِ الْإِحْسَانِ. What is ihsan? And the Prophet ﷺ said, أَن تَعْبُدَ اللَّهَ كَأَنَّكَ تَرَاهُ فَإِن لَمْ تَكُنْ تَرَاهُ فَإِنَّهُ يَرَاكَ. That you worship Allah as if you are seeing Him. And if you cannot, then know that He is seeing you. لَمْ تَكُنْ تَرَاهُ فَإِنَّهُ يَرَاكَ. If you don't have that station of worshipping as if you are seeing Allah, then know that He is seeing you. فَقَالَ أَخْبَرْنِي عَنِ السَّاعَةِ. And he said that, then tell me about the Sa, when the Qiyamah would come, when the last day would come. And the Prophet ﷺ says, Mal masulu anha bi alama min as-sa'il. And the Prophet ﷺ says, the one you are asking doesn't know more than what one who is asking. Ya Musa, nobody knows. This is the knowledge of when would the Qiyamah come is only with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Even the Prophet ﷺ says, I don't know. And then he says, well, at least give me فَأَخْبَرْنِي عَنْ أَمَارَاتِهَا. Come, give me the signs, like, give me some indication. And at that time, Prophet ﷺ gives him the signs of the day of Qiyamah. That becomes quite involved. So, keeping the focus on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the necessity, the wājib, the obligation to believe in Allah, our iman. We don't have iman unless we believe in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This is the first of the 6 articles of iman in this hadith, this Sunnah. So we'll just keep it up to that point. The point with which I want to finish today's class, inshallah, is we have spoken about the knowledge of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Ilm. Knowledge is ilm. But there is another term which is maʿrifa. And here we need to be extremely careful because what we are now entering into is a very slippery ground because of the history of the tasawwuf. But want to remain focused on the book of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Maʿrifa is different from knowledge. Maʿrifa is an Arabic term as opposed to ilm. And the most fundamental distinction between maʿrifa and ilm is that the maʿrifa is experiential ilm. When knowledge goes into the blood, into our being, when the knowledge is not talk, when knowledge is not external, when knowledge is inside us. And our proof for that is the ayah that I mentioned, I will discuss later, which is وَمَا خَلَقْتُ الْجِنَّ وَالْإِنسَ إِلَّا لِيَعْبُدُونَ. Surah Zariyat, ayah 56, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that I did not create jinn and ins illa liya'budun, except that they worship me. Remember I just said a little while ago, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala creates with a purpose, and He created us to worship Him, but He has no need to be worshipped. So why would He create us then if He doesn't have the need, and He only does something with purpose? There are 20 tafasirs which say that illa liya'budun, here illa ayyi liya'rifuni, that they have gnosis of me, they have maʿrifa of me. The reason for our creation is so that we have maʿrifa of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So we worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, we do the act, worship in our deen is very structured. It's not that we can just decide that I'm going to worship sitting on this table for the rest of my life and this is my worship. Nobody can do that. Worship is defined, worship is structured, worship is told. This is worship and this is not worship. As opposed to all the other systems of beliefs currently present in this world. Everything is a human construction. Somebody thought, in Buddhism for example, there is no God in Buddhism. It's just human. We'll inshallah talk about it soon in the coming classes. But every other belief system gives the human beings this ability to construct their own forms of worship if they want to. They can follow what is there, but if they want to, somebody can just come up and say, my worship is to stand on one leg for 20 years. My worship is not to eat for whatever time. Things. Our deen, we cannot construct our own worship because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has sent a messenger to tell us what is ibadah. And the purpose of ibadah, like the salah is known, this is how you pray, that is the form of the salah. That is the time of the salah, the structure. But the purpose of salah is ya'rifu, to have the maʿrifa of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So in the state of sajda, we are supposed to be saying some things. We are supposed to be in a certain physical state with 9 bones touching the floor, or 7 bones touching the floor, and all of those things are conditions of sajda. But the purpose of sajda is something to know al-maʿrifa. And the al-maʿrifa in Tafsir al-Thalabi is a beautiful quotation of this ayah. It says, al-maʿrifa billahi tabla al-qalba mahabatan wa makhafa, is the filling of the heart with His majesty, with His fear. Wal-ayna abratan wa ibratan wa hayaan wa khajlatan, and filling of the eyes with the signs of Allah, with modesty, haya, wa khajlata, and with a sense of shyness. Was-sadra khushu'an, and filling of the chest with khushu', wa hurmatan, and with sanctity, and the limbs wal jawari hastakana, and the limbs with humility, wa ta'a, and the limbs need to have in a state of obedience to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, wa khidma, and service. This is maʿrifa of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Wa lisana zakiran wa hamidan, and the tongue is just doing the zikr of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, remembrance of Allah and praising Allah. Wasama isgha'an wa tafham, and the hearing is filled with understanding. Wa khawatira fi mawaqif al-manaja wa khamudan. Our thoughts are filled and engrossed in manaja, which is subdued whispering with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Manaja. And the obsessions wal wasawisa and mahalan. And all the obsessions have been calmed down. This is the state of maʿrifa of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Ma khalaqtul jinna. And inshallah, I'm going to keep some time for questions. Just finishing with innamal mu'minīna allazīna izā zukira Allāhu wajilat qulūbuhum wa izā tuliyat alayhim āyātuhu zādatuhum īmānan wa alā rabbihim yatawakkalūn. The maʿrifa is also that when the name of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is mentioned, the qulūb, the hearts of the believers tremble. Wajilat qulūbuhum wa izā tuliyat alayhim āyātuhu, and when the ayahs of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala are recited to them, zādathum īmānam wa alā rabbihim yatawakkalūn, their iman increases, and upon their Rabb they yatawakkal, they have reliance on their Rabb. Maʿrifa of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, I'm going to end here, but Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam gave us, he wasn't into poetry, but he gave us a beautiful indication of the maʿrifa of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in his saying, in a hadith that has become just very fundamental in terms of our understanding of poetry. And I'm going to have a 2 minute of this poem, but let me just say something. The Prophet ﷺ, this is a hadith in Sahih Muslim, Sahih Bukhari, in all the collections. He said that the truest thing that a poet has said is the saying of Labīd radiyallahu anhu. Now, Labīd radiyallahu anhu is he was born in the Jahiliyyah, before Islam, and he is one of the 7 great poets whose poems were hung inside the Kaaba, the 7 mu'allaqat, the hanging poems. They wrote with gold, and they hung them in the Kaaba, inside the Kaaba. And he's one of them. And then Allah opened his heart, and he became a Muslim. So in this Sahih Hadith in both Muslim and Bukhari and many other collections, the Prophet ﷺ says, "Inna asdaka kalimati kalaha sha'irun kalimatul labīd ala kullu shay'in ma khala Allāhu bāṭil." The truest thing, a truest statement any poet has made is the saying of Labīd when he said, "Ala kullu shay'in ma khala Allāhu bāṭil." Everything from which Allah has been abstracted is bāṭil, is false, is absolutely nothing, it's vain. And this is a poem that Rabi'a radiyallahu anhu wrote, and when he became a Muslim, he stopped writing poetry. And after the passing away of the Prophet ﷺ, one day he was sitting with Sayyidina Umar, and Sayyidina Umar said, "Give us some of your couplets." And he said, "After Baqarah, how can I do anything after Surah Baqarah?" He never wrote anything after that. And I just thought we will end this with just listening to this 2-minute.
ألا تسألان المرء ماذا يحاول أنحب فيقضى أم ضلال وباطل حبائله مبثوثة بسبيله ويفنى إذا ما أخطأته الحبائل إذا المرء أسرى ليلة ظن أنه قضى عملا والمرء ما عاش عامل فقل له إن كان يقسم أمره ألما يعظك الدهر أمك هابل فتعلم أن لا أنت مدرك ما مضى ولا أنت مما تحذر النفس وائل فإن أنت لم تصدقك نفسك فانتسب لعلك تأتيك القرون الأوائل فإن لم تجد من دون عدنان باقيا ودون معدن فالتزعك العواذل أرى الناس لا يدرون ما قدر أمرهم بلى كل ذي لب إلى الله واسل ألا كل شيء ما خلا الله باطل وكل نعيم لا محالة زائل وكل أناس سوف تدخل بينهم دويهية تصفر منها الأنامل وكل امرئ يوما سيعلم سعيه إذا كشفت عند الإله المحاصل.
You will find many other recitations of this is Bahr al-Tawil, this is the long meter, and it's so beautiful when you hear the whole thing. It just puts you to such ease. It's just inshallah we stop here. If there are questions, those who are online, you can put questions in the chat box if you don't want to speak. But yes.
So, you said the name is very important for Allah to describe Himself to us. The name was very important. He chose the word Allah. The first verse is Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim.
Ikra bismi rabbika alladhi khalaq.
Yeah, okay. But we start every surah with Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. So Allah chose start with the name of Allah, but He also chose Rahman and Rahim. And Rahman and Rahim, as far as I know, were not known in Arab language. So what's the significance of these two words? Are they at par with the word Allah?
The only discussion that is in our sources with respect to the names used in the Quran other than Allah, the only name that comes not close but that is discussed is Ar-Rahman, because it was not known. And the ayah that says Quludur Rahman, whether you call him Rahman or call him Allah, with any name you call him, he is this. But there is consensus that there is no other name of Allah Zat that is the comprehensive Ismu Zat, because Ar-Rahman has the attribute of mercy in it. The word Rahman is known, it comes from the same root as Rahim. It is Ism al-Mubaligha, it is the exaggerated form of Rahim. So there is no other word in the Quran that is comparable to Allah.
And Allah has a definite meaning?
It's Ism Zat. It's the name of the Zat. It is the name of the Zat, of the being of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So when we do...
So it means everything.
Everything. It contains the entirety. And it's unique in its own category. And when we will do, inshallah, the categorizations, Ism Zat is always Ism Zat by itself, the name of being. So when we slaughter, again, Ismullah, like the command is to pronounce the name of Allah. All other attributes are inside this name, whereas this name is not inside others.
I want to talk about a little bit about the word Rabb. Some Muslims, I hear from many people, they use it as the name of Allah. But what I understand from your explanation, Rabb is not the name of Allah. So it's a sort of adjective, right? Provider, supporter, has some meaning like that. Would that be somehow derived from Christianity or Judaism to Islam? And is it a wrong use of the word?
Just for the people online and those who didn't hear the question is that some Muslims use the word Rabb for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and is it wrong to use it? That's the question. Whether it has some connection with Christianity. Because the Rabbil Alameen, He is the Lord and the sustainer of Alameen, it depends on the usage. If we are talking about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, normally we use Allah. But if we are specifically talking of the Lordship of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, in the context of creation of the cosmos, creation and sustaining the existent things, then somebody may say he's the Rabb of the Samawat. Rabbu Samawati wal Ard is in the Quran. The phrase is in the Quran. But in general, when we talk about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, we just use the word Allah. not one of his attributes. Rabb is lordship, ownership, sustainer. But the use of Allah is comprehensive in all aspects. So the word